we realized early in 23 that we weren't reaching a lot of users. And at the same time, Jesse Pollack actually DM'd me on Twitter, and I hadn't talked to him for several months since I left. And he was like, "Hey, Luke, can we chat? I'd love to tell you about what I'm working on at Coinbase." And he told me about Base, and this was before the Base testnet had even launched. It was like February 2023. And so I was like, this is amazing. I'm all in on Base.
Welcome to the Edge Podcast. I'm DeFi Dad here with Nomadic from 4RC. Today's show features a top lending and borrowing app on Base called Moonwell. In this episode, we explore how Moonwell is pushing the boundaries of on-chain finance, focusing on accessibility through mobile onboarding and stablecoins. We'll also dig into Moonwell's alignment with Circle and the role of innovative tools like passkey wallets in simplifying crypto adoption. But before we do, just a quick word from our sponsors who make the Edge podcast possible. Introducing REDSTONE, the fastest growing oracle for DeFi. REDSTONE is the leading oracle for liquid staking and restaking assets, supporting over 60 chains with both the push and pull models. REDSTONE protects more than $3 billion of total value locked and is trusted by more than 100 clients, including the biggest protocols in DeFi, such as Pendle, Venus, EtherFi, and Athena. The unique modular design of REDSTONE makes their price feeds available cross-chain, including EVM, non-EVM, roll-up networks, and all types of app chains. REDSTONE aims to bring the industry forward by supporting upcoming Bitcoin staking tokens and continues to be the #1 oracle provider for liquid staking and restaking tokens. Soon the team will unveil the highly anticipated REDSTONE token to decentralize the protocol. Learn why Nomadic and I rely on REDSTONE for our favorite DeFi apps at REDSTONE.finance and join the REDSTONE expedition today. Power up your portfolio by borrowing, lending, and multiplying your favorite assets, made safe and easy by the industry-leading automation tools at SUMMER.FI. SUMMER.FI offers a curated DeFi experience to access the highest quality protocols and strategies. Discover new earn strategies for your portfolio in a user-friendly app designed to filter based on the tokens you hold, the networks you transact on, the protocols you trust, and the highest available yields. Learn more today at SUMMER.FI, the best place to borrow and earn in DeFi. Discover MERLIN Chain, the cutting-edge Bitcoin Layer 2, trusted with over $2 billion in total value locked. MERLIN revolutionizes Bitcoin by unlocking its true potential with native L1 assets, lightning-fast transactions, and ultra-low fees on an EVM-compatible network. Elevate your Bitcoin experience with MERLIN Chain today at merlinchain.io. All right, let's introduce Luke Youngblood, a founding contributor at Moonwell. Luke, welcome to the Edge Podcast. How are you doing?
I'm doing great today. It's good to be here. I've been watching your content for a long time, about 5 years now, and I'm really excited to be on your podcast.
Yeah, well, totally our pleasure to be able to host you. One of the reasons that Nomadic and I started digging into Moonwell is we noticed just all the activity on Base. And so we're going to talk about your background, but just very quickly, you previously worked at Coinbase. So you've always had, I'm guessing, an eye for building products for real human beings. And that's always been a part of the challenge of onboarding more folks to crypto. And so we're hoping that, like, through the lens of Moonwell, we can talk more about, like, how do we continue to onboard the next generation of users? Not just like the native crypto users, not the whales. We're talking about net new folks too who, maybe are in developing countries. We understand that Moonwell is really focused on that mission. And again, I think it's a part of why you've had such an enormous year here growing at Moonwell. So how'd you get started, I guess, at Coinbase? What led to ultimately working on Moonwell?
Sure. So I've been a software engineer working in tech for my entire career. Prior to Coinbase, I was working at Amazon Web Services, the cloud company. And I think Amazon really instilled in me this customer obsession. That's one of their leadership principles at Amazon is to, be really obsessed about making a nice customer experience, making your apps easy to use so that, anyone can shop. And I kind of brought that to Coinbase. I got into crypto as a hobbyist before Coinbase. I was mining Bitcoin in my free time. And my brother and I were experimenting with Ethereum back in the early days before I joined Coinbase. We actually launched some proof of stake infrastructure for some of the early proof of stake networks, Tezos, Cosmos, and others. And that's what brought me to Coinbase. So my brother and I had this 2-person startup. We helped the Tezos network launch. We built the Tezos Foundation validators. And then Coinbase was looking to get into staking back in 2018. And so they sort of acqui-hired my little tiny 2-person startup. And I went to go work at Coinbase and helped launch a bunch of staking rewards products. So if you're familiar with staking rewards, where you can just hold, your Ethereum in your Coinbase account and you earn a staking reward for it. That was the product line that I launched as lead engineer there. I spent 3 years at Coinbase and it was a great experience. Having been early to crypto, that whole message of Coinbase's mission, which is to increase economic freedom in the world, really resonated with me because I saw that Bitcoin has the opportunity to do that, and crypto has the opportunity to increase economic freedom in the world. And so when I left Coinbase in early 22 to launch Moonwell, I was really inspired to kind of bring DeFi to the world, if you will, because those of us that were really early, like yourselves, in DeFi summer, the apps were not very easy to use at all. They were really only designed for hardcore tech enthusiasts, like software engineers like me. You had to have a home computer, a web browser, Chrome, MetaMask, the whole 9 yards. And I thought this is great, but how do we bring this to people that just use a mobile phone? So that's kind of how we started Moonwell just over 2.5 years ago.
Luke, maybe before we dive further into Moonwell, let's just kind of stick on Coinbase for a minute. Just kind of due to your insights, I would love to get an idea from you on where you think they're going. I see so many people speculating about their different business models and which one will be their primary focus, and curious just kind of what you think about their on-chain finance efforts. How big of a piece of the pie do you think this will eventually be for Coinbase?
That's a great question, because a lot of people are not familiar with the Coinbase sort of master plan and kind of what they're working on. Originally when Coinbase first launched, it was just a way to buy and sell Bitcoin. And, so the first use case of crypto was speculation, obviously, right? But they definitely have a bigger plan than that. And the way I would kind of think about Base and how that ties into Coinbase's future strategic vision is that increasingly more and more of the financial rails that the world operates on will be powered by stablecoins and other types of crypto, not just Bitcoin and Ethereum, right? And so if you look at what's happening in the news recently, for example, Stripe just acquired Bridge, which is a stablecoin payment rails infrastructure provider, for $1.1 billion. Stripe is one of the most amazing tech companies. 2.8 million e-commerce websites globally use Stripe to accept credit card payments on the back end. And if you think about all those developers, there's over 9 million e-commerce developers that are building in the Stripe ecosystem. And so, Coinbase's vision of bringing a million developers to Base and then 1 billion users on chain, well, we already have the beginnings of that with Stripe coming into the ecosystem. And so if you think about, the type of credit card services that Visa, MasterCard, American Express offer today, right? Every merchant basically has to pay a hidden tax of about 2 to 3% on every transaction. So when you swipe your card at the store or online, we're all paying 2 to 3% on every purchase. You don't really see that because the merchant pays it out of their pocket, but the cost is passed on to you as a consumer. So Coinbase, along with Circle and with Stripe and Bridge and these stablecoin infrastructure rails companies now see that as an opportunity. Because if, for example, we can settle stablecoin payments on Base for less than a penny versus 2 to 3% on Visa, that's a great opportunity for Stripe to kind of disrupt Visa and capture a lot of their margin. And so, to kind of bring it back to what is happening internally at Coinbase, in many ways, their move to on-chain versus being a more traditional CeFi kind of exchange is very similar to what Amazon was doing a decade ago when they were migrating all of their Amazon retail apps to Amazon Cloud, like to AWS, right? We went through the same kind of journey where, as a solution architect there, I was actually, talking to a lot of these Amazon retail teams, helping them to understand how to use cloud so that they could bring their apps, into the more modern world. And right now, Jesse Pollock and the Base team are really doing that exact same thing at Coinbase. They're going around to all the different developer teams at Coinbase, training them on how to write smart contracts, how to use Solidity, how to build on-chain systems versus off-chain systems. And so over the next 5 to 10 years, you're going to see all of the Coinbase apps start to migrate slowly from being off-chain CeFi versions to being like fully on-chain versions of themselves.
Luke, can we talk about Base? Because Base is synonymous with Moonwell. Like, the whole reason I started paying attention to Moonwell was because I was looking on Base for yields, and I noticed, as a lending and borrowing hub, that there were lots of great opportunities. A hub like Moonwell is what makes, I think, an L2 or any network successful. But you were like a day one launch partner, I believe, and I'm imagining that has had an enormous impact on the success of Moonwell. So maybe talk to us about the time leading up to this, how you decided to move over to Base, and like what that has meant for the trajectory of Moonwell.
That's a great question. So we first launched the V1 of Moonwell in February of 2022, just a few months after I left Coinbase. And I think the V1 of our app was a great app, I think, but it was really tailored more towards that early DeFi user, the degen that was really comfortable using like very complex and hard to understand products, right? We had a spaceman theme, we had moons and stars, it was dark mode, there was purple color theme, and we were really leaning into just that sort of core audience, right? Like the type of person like me that probably plays a lot of video games, is a software engineer, loves geeking out on on-chain finance and DeFi. But what we realized, and so to kind of bring this back to Base, we realized early in 23 that we weren't reaching a lot of users, and at the same time, Jesse Pollock actually DM'd me on Twitter, and I hadn't talked to him for several months since I left, and he was like, "Hey Luke, can we chat? I'd love to tell you about what I'm working on at Coinbase and kind of share the news." And so we met privately just like the next day. I think he pinged me on like a Friday. We met on Monday, and he told me about Base, and this was before the Base testnet had even launched. It was like February 2023, and so I was like, "This is amazing! I'm all in on Base." Because back when I was working at Coinbase, we were trying to encourage leadership to launch an Ethereum L2, but they weren't really receptive to the idea. And I got that idea from Flashbots because I was a contributor to Flashbots, the MEV relay. I was contributing on the infrastructure side, kind of helping them build nodes and just doing it as a volunteer effort because I believed in kind of like scaling Ethereum. And so some of the Flashbots contributors were telling me like, "Hey, you should convince Coinbase to launch a layer 2. It would be really good for their business." But somehow Jesse was able to convince the leadership to do this. And so what we realized were two things when we first found out about this. Number one, our app was way too complex and too hard to use for Coinbase retail users that might want to try it for the first time coming from Coinbase. And so we thought we need to redesign our app completely. So we reached out to Vector DAO. Vector DAO is a DAO that does design work, and it's founded by a bunch of former Coinbase engineers, designers, really smart and artistic people. And so Yi Tong, who's like the founder of Vector DAO, he was a staff design engineer at Coinbase, or a designer. And we asked them like, "Hey, would you be willing to do a redesign of the Moonwell app and the brand and make it suitable for a retail audience from Coinbase?" And so we spent that spring like iterating with them on the design for 3 months or so. We had many meetings with them, helped to kind of share our Moonwell mission and vision with them, and our goal of making the app more easy to use, more beautiful. And they really crushed it on the design. They came back with a V2 design. We had the Figma files and everything. And then that summer of 2023, before Base Mainnet launched, myself and a bunch of Moonwell contributors from Brazil were working, nights and weekends, working crazy hours, like 100-hour weeks, to get Moonwell V2 over the line. And so the day that we launched on August 9th, that was the day of base mainnet launch, was the same day that we launched the redesign of our beautiful app. And so those two things kind of landed together, like the Moonwell V2, which is the app you see today, and the base mainnet launch. And so it was really kind of exciting to kind of queue up all that work and just make sure that everything landed on time. And also that was our expansion from like the Polkadot ecosystem where we first launched into the base ecosystem. So we had to do a ton of work to make sure that, you know, we could actually govern the base protocol. We developed a novel cross-chain governance solution called temporal governance that allows us to kind of, you know, have our token holders vote and be able to execute, you know, real decentralized governance on base as well. And so we continue to invest in the multi-chain stuff because that's really key to kind of our vision of being able to expand across the Superchain.
Luke, I don't know who's doing hiring at Coinbase, but it just seems like every Coinbase alum is just a gigabrain. I don't know what they're drinking over there, what they're feeding you guys, but I think the Coinbase mafia is going to give the PayPal mafia a run for its money. I want to get your opinion on Base's kind of roadmap to decentralization. For me, I've got funds on Base, but there's been something kind of holding me back from really putting a more, I'd say, meaningful percentage of my portfolio into Base. So I guess your positioning within the Base ecosystem, what can you tell us about how, like, I guess, plans on further decentralization of the Base network?
Sure. I think that's a valid concern, to be honest. You know, we've been really focused on decentralization throughout like the Ethereum community for years now, right? And Ethereum has a really great decentralization story at the layer 1 level with, you know, tens of thousands of relay chain validators that are, you know, confirming new blocks through the proof of stake network. But at the layer 2 level, they are still very centralized, right? There's a single centralized sequencer run by Coinbase, or in the case of Optimism, it's run by the Optimism Foundation, right? And these centralized sequencers are, you know, a single point of failure. And so Coinbase does recognize that this is something they have to decentralize over time. And so you can see their efforts if you follow Jesse Pollak and the Base team on Twitter or on X. They're building towards what's called a stage 1 rollup, where you'll be able to, if let's say you have funds on Coinbase and you want to exit those funds, you'll be able to do so regardless of whether the sequencer allows you to or not. You'll have the ability to be, you know, kind of censorship resistant, if you will. And then, of course, the longer term vision is to actually decentralize the sequencer. And the way that that's going to happen, I've seen some of the plans from Optimism. They're already implementing interoperability between Optimism layer 2s. So, for example, you will be able to, later this year or early next, you'll be able to send tokens between Base and Optimism, Zora and Mode, and all of the Superchain aligned layer 2s. So that's step 1, is sort of connecting the sequencers together so that they can have some trust with each other, because that is a trust assumption you have to have, is that if I allow like OP tokens to transfer between Base and Optimism, for example, I have to trust both Optimism and Base's sequencer because they have permission to mint and burn tokens on either chain. And so that will bring some decentralization, but then the longer term vision is to actually have more Superchain L2s participate in this shared sequencing, and really have a robust decentralized sequencer network where all of the Superchain L2s kind of come together and confirm blocks together. And on the Optimism side, they're building some really cool privacy tech that you might have heard about. Just last week, you know, we had the big like ETH Global conference here in San Francisco. And I actually had a chance to meet with some of the teams from like WorldChain and Unichain, you know, that's Uniswap's new layer 2 and WorldCoin's new layer 2 that are part of Optimism Superchain. And they're actually building some really cool tech alongside Flashbots. And what they're building is the ability for, you know, one of the challenges with decentralizing the sequencer is we don't want to introduce MEV, right? MEV is value extractive on mainnet. You know, a lot of the swaps on Uniswap on mainnet get sandwiched, and, you know, transactions get reordered, and it's mainly extracting value from retail users of DeFi. But on the shared sequencer side, we want to make sure that as we decentralize the sequencer, we don't introduce reordering opportunities. So these techs that are like these like hardcore electrical engineering people that I met at Flashbots, and the techs working at Unichain and WorldChain and Optimism are actually all building towards a world where they can kind of have an opaque mempool, if you will, like, hide the contents of the mempool from the people running the sequencer themselves, so that as they decentralize the sequencer, we can't introduce MEV, or people can't reorder transactions in a block. And so I think that's kind of really important. So they're being very thoughtful about this, because in a few years from now, we will have decentralization at the sequencer level. But, apps like Uniswap want to make sure that all that value isn't just captured by, Jared from Subway.eth, if you're familiar with that. That's like one of the largest, sandwich attackers on mainnet that's extracted millions of dollars of value from Uniswap traders on mainnet Ethereum. So yeah, they're decentralizing the sequencer, but it's a progressive decentralization, like a lot of projects in crypto are.
So when you look at the ecosystem of Base, there's a lot that's available. I mean, it's undoubtedly the number 2, I think, L2 on Ethereum now. Like, I think it's just behind Arbitrum, or might be eclipsing that even soon. So I think there is a challenge of, earning attention. If you're in a very busy, thriving ecosystem with lots of liquidity, lots of applications, like you've got to fight for that attention. And so I think that goes to the heart of like, what is the mission? Like, how do you differentiate? So maybe we could talk a little bit about just that. Like, how do you pitch the mission behind Moonwell? And then I guess, how does that manifest in terms of how do you actually differentiate from other DeFi applications?
Sure. The Moonwell vision that we all came together and coalesced around a couple of years ago is a world where finance and governance is on-chain. And our mission is to bring powerful on-chain finance tools to everyone in the world, no matter where you live or what your ability level is. And so if you think about that, it's very similar to the Coinbase mission I mentioned earlier about increasing economic freedom in the world. And the thing that differentiates the Moonwell app from other apps is that we try to really reach people where they are. So for example, if you're living in South America or in Africa, you probably don't have a desktop computer. You probably have a mobile phone. And so we're mobile first. You might not even have a high-speed internet connection at home. You probably just access all of your apps through your phone. And so just like in the developing world, they sort of bypassed running a lot of copper wires and building landlines for phones. They went straight to mobile. We think more and more people globally are going to be going straight to mobile when they come on chain and start using crypto and on-chain apps for the first time. And so, as part of that, we've actually translated the Moonwell app into 5 different languages. Besides English, there's Spanish, Portuguese, Chinese, and Korean today. And then we have Moonwell contributors around the world in other language-speaking countries, like for example, Vietnamese, German, etc., that are just translating the app into many different languages. And so we want to be accessible to everyone, no matter where you live. And for those of us that live in America or in Europe, we might not really appreciate this as much because we have access to good banking services. Like if you live in America, you have services like Venmo where you can just send your friends money. But if you live in, for example, Brazil, like 3 of our Moonwell contributors do, 40% of people in Brazil don't even have a bank account, right? And if you live in a country like Argentina where your local currency is being inflated away, most of those people actually want to hold stablecoins in a crypto wallet and then transact with stablecoins. And so Moonwell is really designed to bring the power of on-chain finance to everyone in the world, no matter where you are. And I think that's really the mission, and that's the focus for us. We want to make it so easy to use that you can go from zero to having, an on-chain finance application working in 1 minute or less.
Hey everyone, before we get back to the show, excited to tell you about a new omni-chain Bitcoin solution called FBTC, which has already surpassed $125 million in TVL and become the fastest growing BTC-Fi asset this summer. The FBTC Points Campaign Sparkle offers sustainable yields plus points and token airdrops from strategic partners such as Babylon, Mantle's new token Cook, and more. To learn more, visit fbtc.com/ongoing-campaign. And special thanks to FBTC for sponsoring us at the Edge Podcast.
Luke, we were talking a bit before we get on about the app. Would you be able to showcase it with us, and maybe the audience watching on YouTube can see how it works, and then hopefully we can kind of make it interesting too for people listening?
Absolutely. So let me just show you a demo of the Moonwell app really quickly. So first of all, I'm showing you what's called an iOS simulator. This is simulating a mobile phone, but you could do this on your real phone. It's just easier for me to present. All you have to do is browse to Moonwell.fi and you can load the app. Now, what's really cool about this is we've integrated with the Coinbase Smart Wallet, which means you no longer have to download any apps or extensions to actually get a crypto wallet. And you also don't have to, write down a 24-word recovery phrase, because your wallet is secured by your fingerprint or your Face ID. And this works on both iOS and Android. And it works on older devices too. You don't have to have a latest state-of-the-art phone. So let me just jump in and click Launch App. Now, I've already connected the Coinbase Smart Wallet, but I'm just going to disconnect to show you how easy it is. So you can just tap Coinbase Wallet, and then you'll see this pop up, and you say Connect to Moonwell. Now, this is very similar to connecting MetaMask, if you're familiar with that, but I'm just going to go ahead and approve that. And then I've already connected my app to the wallet, and so I didn't have to download any apps or extensions to do that. And then really simply, you can browse our Discover page and kind of see all these different markets and what's available to you. So let me just tap into the Ethereum market, and I want to just supply some Ethereum in my wallet. And I wanted to mention something. I have a little bit of Ethereum here already that I've pre-funded, but Coinbase has this really cool feature called Magic Spend. And so you see this little wallet icon. What that means is you can actually have ETH in your Coinbase account, and you don't even have to, transfer it or withdraw it to your wallet. You can actually just deposit it directly from Coinbase into Moonwell. That's optional. You don't have to link your Coinbase account to the smart wallet, but that's a really cool feature, because not only can you use apps like Moonwell, but you could actually trade on Aerodrome, the top DEX on Base, or you could, buy NFTs on OpenSea without even having to withdraw your funds. So that's one of these scary pain points, that a lot of people have when they first use DeFi is you have to paste that withdrawal address into your Coinbase app, right? And that's really scary. People are, if you mistype one character, you might lose all your money, right? So we just want to make that easy. So let me just go ahead and supply a little bit of ETH here.
Luke, I usually look at that about 3 to 4 times to make sure I've got it right when I'm pasting. So that Magic Spend thing is really cool. So essentially what that's doing is anybody with a Coinbase account, whether they know it or not, are attached to DeFi now, essentially. Is that kind of correct?
That's correct, yeah. And I think this is a huge unlock. It works with Ethereum today, but you can imagine in the near future we'll work with USD coin, with stablecoins. It will work with CBBTC, with Bitcoin. So you can go right from Bitcoin in your Coinbase account into DeFi in a single operation. And I'm really bullish on that feature, because I think this is a big unlock. Again, just trying to reduce all those pain points, the friction and onboarding points that exist in DeFi previously, and make it easy and accessible for everyone in the world. Okay, so let me go ahead and click confirm, and this is what will happen here. I'm gonna actually switch my payment method. This is the pay with. I'm just gonna pay out of my regular wallet. And you'll notice something here. I don't have a recovery key. That's just a test wallet. But so first of all, it tells me exactly what will change. So just like some of the better wallets you might have used, like Robbie, and even MetaMask is doing this today, it tells you exactly what's going to happen with your wallet balances, which is really good for safety, right? You want to know if an app you're using is going to take more money than you think it is. But this is kind of cool. See how it says sponsored by Coinbase? Coinbase Developer Platform is actually sponsoring gas for apps like Moonwell and Aerodrome and others on Base. And they have this technology called a Paymaster, which is a smart contract that connects to your smart account wallet. And basically that means that when you use Moonwell and Aerodrome and others, you won't even have to pay fees. So again, reducing that onboarding friction, that was another pain point. You had to go buy Ethereum before you could even use an app. And so really you can kind of see how Coinbase is trying to make apps as easy to use as like a Web 2 app. You know, like you shouldn't have to pay fees to use an app. So let me go ahead and confirm this. Use my biometrics to sign.
These friction points you're calling out too, like these were, each one of these things were questions that like a friend would ask you. Like, okay, so you said that I can like lend my ETH on Moonwell, but like, how do I actually do that? Oh, you got to go, create the wallet. Now you got to withdraw. The withdrawing there is taken care of through that one feature that's specific here to like a Coinbase user. So you're able to like basically go directly from Coinbase to there, which I think is the gateway drug to getting people into DeFi. Like you have to like allow them to see how easy that is. Otherwise, they're stuck trying to figure out, did I send money to my wallet? And then that other feature, that's so cool. I didn't realize that there was like gas being sponsored now in certain instances. So, everyone would get stopped with, in this case, you're lending ETH. So you already have ETH at least available. But like, let's say you're lending USDC. It's such a common pain point. I don't have any ETH, or I don't have whatever. You could be on Tron, whatever network. You need the native gas token. If that can be handled here on something like Base, it's just huge. So really cool stuff, Luke. I had no idea that this worked like this. I got to get on there and try using that Coinbase wallet.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, so I want to actually just borrow some ETH, but borrow some USDC against my ETH that I just supplied. But before I do that, I just want to show you guys a feature that's kind of cool. So let me go back to the main app here. So if you want to just install this app to your home screen, you can just click that little share button at the bottom and click add to home screen. And then what that does is it really allows you to kind of have the Moonwell app right on your home screen. Just like any other app on your phone, it's a progressive web app, so you can just get back to it by clicking there, and you get right into the Moonwell app. So really, again, trying to make this super easy to use, just like a mobile app. And you can also install like the Coinbase wallet to your home screen by just going to wallet.coinbase.com. That's the smart wallet. And so I can see exactly what I have in there. And if I refresh this, I think it will show me even my DeFi positions. But let me, so I can see my DeFi positions here as well.
Luke, just quick question on progressive web apps. Do you think they're getting kind of close to parity with like just regular apps in the, Apple App Store and Google App Store? Like, are we getting near?
We are, I think, because, one of the challenges with building like an app that touches money is that the app stores like Apple and Google really don't like apps that touch money. Even apps like Coinbase Wallet, which are pretty trustworthy, have been blocked by the App Store from time to time. And so for an app like Moonwell, it would be really hard, if not impossible, for us to get through the App Store approval process. But progressive web apps allow you to just have like a React Native app like ours, or a React app, like our app is built on React and Next.js framework, that can just simply be installed to your home screen, and kind of bypass the gatekeepers at the App Store.
Luke, just a quick follow-up. I noticed that Moonwell has the typical like lending and borrowing options. If we lend, we're just earning that borrowing interest and maybe some other reward like the WELL token. On the borrowing side, it's over collateralized, so we're putting up more in terms of the asset value than what we borrow. But there's also a vault tab, and it's got some like really competitive rates there. Like, what are those vaults, and how are you offering? Like, how is Moonwell offering these like more competitive rates for, let's say, USDC here is 12.6% APY?
It's a great question. So one of the early projects to the Base ecosystem is Morpho. If you guys are familiar with the Morpho lending primitive, Morpho launched on mainnet, and it quickly grew to almost $2 billion of TVL on mainnet. And they came to Base, and they were one of the first, kind of isolated lending primitives. What makes Morpho different than other lending apps like Moonwell is that it offers isolated markets, where you can simply supply one collateral and borrow one borrowable asset. So, for example, CBBTC, Coinbase's Bitcoin, you can borrow USDC against it. And these vaults are actually these permissionless, immutable contracts that supply borrowable USDC liquidity into those markets. And so they offer people that are really new to on-chain finance the ability to simply supply an asset like ETH or USD Coin or Euro Coin and let our risk curators, which are Block Analytica and B Protocol, kind of manage the risk of lending that out for you and generating a return. And so you can click on this little eye to see exactly where all the yield comes from. The base APY is what you get for lending out your USD Coin. And then, of course, there are rewards that come in the form of our token, as well as Circle has USDC incentives on some of the markets, or in the case of Euro Coin, they have EURC incentives. And then, of course, you're also earning some Morpho tokens, but Morpho is not yet transferable, so we don't show an APY for those. But you can easily see the breakdown of where all the yield comes from. Again, we want to make it really clear where all the yield comes from, because it's not just coming from lending. But that gives you a really nice, in fact, let me just go ahead and deposit $5 in there to show you how easy that is. I'm going to deposit $5 of USDC. You'll see exactly what's going to happen. 5 USDC is going to leave my wallet, and I'm going to get this vault token that represents a claim on that. And again, this is sponsored by Coinbase, so there's no fees to pay. So let me just confirm that. And another cool thing about being on Base is that 2-second block times mean transactions confirm extremely quick and fast. You can use a DeFi app and have your transaction confirmed in seconds.
Yeah, it's definitely providing the user experience that we were foretold would happen someday. Like, it's already there. You're able to basically have a transaction confirmed within a second, and that's nice, because to your point here, whether the gas was sponsored or not, the gas on Base is so cheap. It's very cheap on really all the L2s now, but the fact that you can pay less than a cent. I mean, I'm transacting at least once a week. One of the reasons is through Aerodrum, but some of the other applications I've played with, like Moonwell, it's just such a nice perk. I guess I'll never get over what I used to pay on an ETH mainnet versus what I can do now on Base.
We've been working hard towards this future of trying to make apps easy to use and accessible to everyone. You can kind of see that. So, I wanted to show you also what the portfolio page looks like. So if you just tap here, you can tap on portfolio. You can kind of see your portfolio, how much you're supplying, how much you're borrowing, what your credit limit is. Again, we're trying to make it easier to understand, so there isn't a lot of financial jargon. And I want to go ahead and borrow some USD Coin just to show you how easy that is as well. So let me go back to the markets, and then this is where I can borrow USD Coin against the ETH I just supplied. So let me borrow, let's say, $10 of USD Coin. It'll tell me what I'll pay to borrow, and then, of course, I can go ahead and do that in my Coinbase wallet. It'll tell me I'll get $10 in my wallet. And so again, one of the concepts that you've probably seen a lot in DeFi is that health factor. We still have a health factor, and you need to make sure you're not borrowing too much, or you might get liquidated. But we call this credit remaining, because we're trying to, again, just remove the jargon, make it more accessible. People understand a little bit more about how these things work in the sort of CeFi world, right? And so we want to kind of, tell people what the credit limit is, how much they have remaining, make it really simple and easy to use.
I love that. Yeah, that's a nice little improvement. I just want to know, how much money could I likely borrow against whatever assets I have there based on their price today. If it's stable coins here, thankfully it's easier if you're borrowing against stable coins. But if you're borrowing against something like ETH, just tell me what the max is and tell me, how much of my credit, my borrowing I've actually used there. So yeah, I think it's a really nice improvement.
So Luke, as you were taking us through the app there, it's clear that stable coins are an integral part of the Moonwell platform. You mentioned earlier the acquisition by Stripe of Bridge. I guess for Moonwell, what do stablecoins mean to the platform? And what is your vision of where stablecoins are going, their current trajectory? Is this just going to get bigger and bigger? We just kind of love your high-level thoughts.
For sure, yeah. First of all, stablecoins are becoming an increasingly important part of our financial ecosystem, whether it's TradFi or DeFi. And part of the thing that's driving that is, of course, the Stripe partnership and stablecoin payments starting to become a reality. And so I think what's going to happen, this is just a theory that I have that I think we'll see play out in the coming years, is that as more and more payments happen on stablecoin rails versus fiat rails, versus Visa and MasterCard, we'll start to see increasing global adoption of stablecoins. And I think, in my opinion, stablecoins are the first retail-friendly use case for crypto. It's the first use case that actually could be used by everyone in the world because, since we all pay this hidden 2 to 3% tax on every transaction we make, that's ripe for disruption. And as the merchants start to pass some of those savings along to consumers, we'll start to see greater adoption. Now, it's going to take some infrastructure, right? For example, we're going to need apps like Coinbase to provide like a really nice, easy to use, maybe it's a debit card or credit card experience that actually settles with USD coin on the back end. And so that you have that same experience when you check out or when you buy something in a store. And then what's going to really happen, I think, on the Base ecosystem side is Base is where all that stablecoin transaction volume will settle. So that's where, Stripe and the merchants will sort of receive their USD coin or Euro coin in the case of people shopping in Europe. And then all of those, merchants and stablecoin settlement clearinghouses, if you will, instead of just holding like dollars in a bank account, or in the case of many of these, like Stripe today, they probably hold U.S. Treasuries short term because they want to earn a yield on those Treasuries. Those apps are going to increasingly use money markets like Moonwell because they'll want to earn an on-chain yield. They won't just want to hold, billions of dollars of USD coin in their wallet on Base. And so we see this as sort of strategic because as, Stripe and Bridge and these other payments platforms integrate stablecoins, that brings all this money into the on-chain economy. And not only does it allow the Base ecosystem to grow and all the apps like Moonwell and Aerodrome to grow, it allows opportunities for, retail users of our app to also, enjoy the deep liquidity that exists in the money markets. So that will drive down borrowing rates for people that want to borrow stablecoins, right? If Stripe is supplying billions of dollars of TVL, then that means the interest rate to borrow will be much lower. And so I see it as like this economic flywheel that really starts to just grow and take off as more and more of the payments volume kind of converts from TradFi over to on-chain finance.
Say hello to Puffer Unify. Puffer Finance is expanding beyond native liquid restaking with new products such as Unify-based rollup and Unify pre-confirmations AVS. Unify is not just another L2. Unify is a based rollup, one that will solve L2 issues, such as slow withdrawals versus instant withdrawals with Puffer Unify. Puffer Unify is fast, capable of sub-second transactions. Unify also has boosted Puffer points, which means if you bridge assets, you earn boosted Puffer points and rewards from dApps on Unify. Puffer's core products mean a bright future for Ethereum. Puffer Unify will launch in November 2024. Learn more at Puffer.fi.
Luke, I definitely see a symbiosis with Coinbase and Circle, but curious, I guess, kind of Moonwell's alignment with Circle as well. I guess, does their kind of mission align with yours as well at Moonwell?
Yeah, it does actually. So we just joined the Circle Alliance, which is a partner program that, fintechs and other, apps like ours can kind of plug into. And we've been strong partners with Circle for quite some time now. For example, when Base first launched, we had liquidity incentives from Circle in the form of USD coin on some of our markets. And then I was featured on the Circle Developers podcast YouTube channel months back last year. Actually, it's funny because I live in Northern California, and Circle actually developed a course on Bitcoin that they've been teaching through Junior Achievement NorCal. Junior Achievement is actually a global charitable organization that aims to kind of help young students in high school age kind of grow and learn about entrepreneurship and other business opportunities. And JA NorCal actually developed this course together with Circle. It's called Bitcoin from it's on Bitcoin. It's about barter, from barter to Bitcoin. It's on basically the history and the future of money. And so I actually had the privilege of teaching that at a few of the local high schools here in Northern California. And so, I've kind of been really deep in the Circle ecosystem for some time. And I love their mission, because what Circle is building is not just a stable coin like USD Coin. They're actually building these fintech rails, like the APIs and backends, that all of the companies like Stripe need to plug into to actually process stablecoin settlement and stablecoin payments. And so you might see like Tether, for example. Tether has a fraction of the employees of Circle. And you might wonder, like, why do they have so few employees and Circle has so many employees? It's because Tether is just building a fiat-backed stablecoin, whereas Circle is building this new like global payments rails infrastructure. And so that's the difference. I think it's really strategic for them. And I could see, Circle really crushing it in the years to come.
Luke, I want to zoom back out for a moment. What are some of the ways that you see crypto fitting into the life of everyone on the planet? Like, coming from Coinbase, building Moonwell, you're very focused on, real mass adoption in crypto. And so, Bitcoin has been an incredible on-ramp for so many folks. Stablecoins, of course, stablecoins is synonymous with Ethereum. Ethereum's been huge. Solana has been in a huge on-ramp this cycle. So what are your thoughts there? Like, what else needs to be done to make DeFi or on-chain finance more accessible to the average person?
This is a really good question. So first of all, I think those of us that have been early to Bitcoin, we kind of view Bitcoin as the only truly sovereign form of money, right? It can't be inflated away by any central bank. And it is sort of this digital gold that's great as, a retirement asset, if you will, because it's one of those things that will probably always be worth more a few years from now than it is worth today, just due to the global inflation and all the money printing that's going on with almost every central bank globally. And so Bitcoin is, I think, what people increasingly want to hold and store as like a digital retirement account, if you will. And so Moonwell's a perfect place to just hold your digital gold, essentially. And then stablecoins are what we'll be paid in and transact with on a daily basis. So Moonwell kind of enables you to store and grow your Bitcoin or your Ethereum over the years like a retirement account. Well, you can also borrow in times of need. So for example, if you needed to pay for school or to start a small business. And then we also think of it as just a simple way to store, earn, and transfer stablecoins in your daily life.
Luke, I want to go back to this idea of the Superchain again. You talked a bit about it earlier in the podcast, but as somebody like working in the ecosystem again, would just love to get your high-level vision of how that's evolving and ultimately where it's going. What's like the end game for the Superchain?
So I think one of the things we really need for the Superchain to reach mass adoption is this new idea called chain abstraction or network abstraction. You might have heard of it. In the early days of the internet, there were mostly these walled gardens like AOL and CompuServe, and it wasn't just like this globally connected network of networks. But now if you use the internet, you don't really think about the fact that you open an app on your phone and it might talk to like AWS where some compute is running, or Google for some search functionality, or even OpenAI for like a chatbot or support functionality, and maybe Stripe for billing and payments. And so all of those services are just available on the internet. And when you open the app on your phone, it just talks to those services. And the Superchain is going to evolve in a very similar way, especially now that you have big companies like Coinbase and Sony building Sonium, Uniswap building Unichain, WorldCoin building WorldChain. So you can imagine a DeFi app or an on-chain app like Moonwell. When you open that app on your phone, they'll be doing things in the same way. For example, they may be reaching out to WorldChain for proof of personhood or proof of being over 18. You might be transacting with a stablecoin on Base. You might be buying music or tipping an artist you like on Sonium. And so this is kind of why the chain abstraction is so important and interoperability is so important. And the way that's going to happen is just by the Superchain layer 2s first connecting to each other with the decentralized sequencer, like I mentioned earlier. Messages will be able to flow freely between these layer 2s really quickly, in a matter of just a second or two. And then as we drive the scalability of all these things up and the transaction time down, for example, the Unichain is going to have a 250 millisecond block time. That will enable these apps to have a more Web 2-like experience where it's very fast and snappy and you don't have to wait for things to happen like you do today. So I think that's kind of the vision that we have with the Superchain, and that's why we're so, kind of excited to be building in the Superchain ecosystem, because I feel like you see that happening now with Sony, Coinbase, Uniswap. There's even rumors that BlackRock is building a layer 2. I'm not sure if that's true or not, but BlackRock manages something like $100 trillion of TradFi assets. And so if they're building a layer 2, that means that a lot of, TradFi settlement might happen on the Superchain as well. So imagine, a future where you might be able to, settle stocks. Like today, those are settled with digital DTCC, which is like this, DCCC, which is like this digital clearinghouse that all stocks are settled with. That could happen on chain in a much more efficient way. And all of these kind of companies are sort of building a different version of optimism, if you will, but one that's tailored towards their business. And we'll see it connect together kind of like a new internet, if you will.
One team that's related to you that I think of is just another team of Coinbase alums, which is Definitive.fi. And obviously there's just so many builders in the space who start from Coinbase. And one common thread I've noticed is you guys love to work on really hard problems. Like you don't just like fork a protocol. You look to like really make significant improvements for us as users. So I can appreciate and attest to like some of the things you demoed today. Like those are improvements that really are going to ensure that the next class of new users that come into this space, they're not going to get turned off the way that there were many people in 2020, 2021. I have no doubt there's many folks who got so turned off they've never come back because they spent so much money on gas. Let's say on like an Ethereum L1 when gas prices were like literally like $50 to $100 per transaction. Now that we've got the right infrastructure with something like a Base and other Ethereum L2s and all that's being done to scale Ethereum L1, I mean, it's really setting us up for a time where now we can make these more dramatic improvements to the UX. Like now you can really look to reach parity with what we would have used on something like a Coinbase or any other sort of exchange. So the day that DeFi is that frictionless that it's almost impossible to discern, am I on what is an underlying centralized exchange or am I on a totally permissionless, self-custodial type of DeFi application? I mean, that's the future that we're all building towards. Like that's when I think like DeFi, really starts to take over. But guys, this is a good place, I think, for us to wrap up. So I want to remind our listeners, first, go learn more and check out the application that we got to demo here at Moonwell.fi. Follow Moonwell DeFi on Twitter or X, and then follow Luke Youngblood, which is Luke's personal account. Luke, thanks so much for coming on. Really appreciate you, walking us through the demo. We don't get to do as many demos nowadays, and Coinbase alums are so good at demos. So if you listen to the podcast, I'd highly recommend go to the-edge.xyz. You can find the article there. That tends to have all the links to podcasts like where we show it on YouTube. But otherwise, just go to my YouTube. It's at DeFi Dad, and you'll find the episode there, and you can watch it. Otherwise, any final word for us, Luke? And like I said, would love to have you come back in the future, and just really appreciate you coming on.
Thank you so much for hosting me today. It's been great, guys. I really love all your content. I think you bring on-chain finance to a much larger audience in the way that you're helping people learn and grow. And it really resonated with me in the early days of DeFi Summer. So I'm just really appreciative that there's builders like you in the space that are creating good content for half a decade already, and it's been an honor to be here. So thank you for hosting us.
As a fellow DeFi dad, we have to look out for one another. So yeah, we always we love to use Moonwell. I look forward to more tutorials now in our newsletter. So if you haven't subscribed to our newsletter, it's totally free. It's the-edge.xyz. But otherwise, thanks everyone for joining, and we'll see you next time. Thanks everyone for tuning in. If you're a talented founder or developer, please consider reaching out to our team at fourthrevolution.capital. And to stay up to date with future episodes, plus get expert tips, strategies, and exclusive content, subscribe to our free newsletter at the-edge.xyz.